Welcome, beautiful souls, to another episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. I'm really excited because today I have an amazing woman by my side, Shae Savage. Welcome.
Thank you, Goddess. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So blessed to be here.
Hmm. So we were just saying, Shae and I, before recording this, that we could have done it in person because we live a few streets away from each other. In Squamish, we met on this beautiful land, and we are both really passionate about womb work, priestess work, and being a bridge between the spiritual and the material world. And we both work with women entrepreneurs. So I know that you're going to be very interested in listening to her because Shae has a lot of magic to share. So, my darling, why don't you share a little bit about your story and what brought you to becoming a womb priestess?
Thank you. Happy to do so. It's been a beautiful unfolding and a spiraling journey deep, deep, deep into the caverns of my womb space. I would have to say that this journey has been for sure a decade. And the initiation really happened for me back in my early 20s when I was moving through ending my first marriage and just really coming into this recognition of complete numbness. There was no pleasure, there was an emptiness. And I felt so disconnected from my form. I felt disconnected from my womb. I had incredibly painful bleeds, lots of clots. There was just a lot of dissonance happening in my body. And at that time, I really started to investigate like what's current, what's happening, how am I feeling? How can I regain this deep sensitivity that I've always cultivated? And what is the information of the numbness really bringing me? And so it's been an accumulative journey, as it always is, into really tapping into my Kundalini energetics, really, housing myself as a leader in Kundalini yoga, which has a basis in my teachings in Tantra studies. So, really working for sensual and sexual liberation, bringing the entire system back online, really coming into unfolding and unpacking the traumas that I've held generationally, ancestrally, and then in my own journey on this earth. And really listening to my body's intelligence through the entire process. So, for me, that's been my journey. I happened to move into the science of movement. So I hold a degree in kinesiology for 15 years now. And it really, really helped me understand the neurology of the brain and like the physicality of this earthly temple that we house, and then pairing that with the intelligence of the Kundalini and the energetics. And this, of course, leads me down, down, down into the roots, into the womb space. And for me, I knew that a lot of the trauma work that I was holding in my body, and it was showing up through different pains in my menstrual system and pains in my body, really was coming from the numbness in my womb. And it got me thinking, how do I want to mother? This was like five, 6 years, even pre-conception. I have a beautiful son now, 15 months,
Yes.
and a bonus daughter, 9 years old. And so before even they were in this reality, I was already preparing like my womb. How can I mother my womb? And what am I carrying here that I don't want to pass down the line? What am I carrying, and how am I showing up in relationship with myself? How am I showing up in relationship with partnerships? How am I caretaking the earth and the land? And so it really led me to this preconception phase of preparation. I want my womb to be this glorious home, this really well kept, loved home before and a life is living in there. And so that was really a motivator for me, is this deep knowing of creation, that I wanted to carry life in this body. And it happened to spread out in as it does in the ways of our fertility into the creation of my business and into the creation of the work that I do. And so that's really been the journey so far with
Beautiful.
excavating and planting and yeah, really
Yeah.
come.
I love that you share that because it's also something that I did actually really at the beginning of my pregnancy.
Mm,
So I was, first trimester, and I did a whole womb healing course with a womb
mm,
healer, in order to let go of all the stuck emotions that I might have in my womb. And I really started to realize that if you heal your womb, and she was talking about the 7 gates of the wombs and all the
mm,
emotions that you have there that are stuck, you have a deeper connection with your soul to start with your power. But
mm,
most of all, you then birth a baby that's coming from a healed place. Because when a baby is going through the vaginal canal, he's taking in all the emotions that are stuck there. All the betrayal, every time you said yes and you meant no, all the shame, like everything that's linked to our sexual intimacy, but also much more than that, our whole personality.
mm.
And if every woman healed her womb and birthed a child through a healed womb, we would just build a whole new generation,
Yes, we
right?
would.
And
Hmm.
so I thought that that was like so magical. And I got so excited as well about talking about that and more, even though it's not the focus of my work. I think it's so, so beautiful, so healing, and so important. And it's healing for us, but also for the world that we are
Hmm.
building. So do you help women do that as well? I'm guessing yes.
I certainly do. Yes, I help women, in particular conscious leaders or conscious creatives, these boss babes, really reclaim their sovereignty through their womb space, which brings forth life, which brings forth this really well kept energy instead of it being fragmented and competitive and comparative. It really comes into this
Mm.
unison of looking at the co-creative relationship that you have within you and then outside of you with women.
Yeah, you basically help them move away from their wounded feminine to their divine
Yes.
feminine through womb work.
Yes, through their empowered state, their wildness, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it changed a lot for you to do that work. You then had, better cycles that were less painful. You felt more connected to yourself. If
Yeah.
someone is really struggling right now and having very intense periods to the point that she prefers to be disconnected from her body and, is taking just
Hmm.
like painkillers or not wanting to have her periods, what
Hmm.
would be your invitation?
Yeah. So really, really embracing the pain. And it takes great courage to be able to show up in your beautiful warrior self and face the pain, because the pain is an invitation to go inwards. It's not to bully you, it's not to be of harm to you. It's to really invite you to come deeper into a place that is being ignored and neglected and forgotten about. And so our
Mm.
body only has, you know, ways to speak to us to grab our attention. And so the pain doesn't become immense overnight. It becomes a slow dripping of ignoring and repressing and pushing away. And then all of a sudden we're like, wow, why is it so big? And the bigness is really to bring your attention inwards, to be like, hey, I have your attention. Like, let's talk.
Yeah, listen to me.
Let's listen. Yeah. So the first invitation would be to sit in that pain and acknowledge that the pain is bringing you into a conversation. And as you sit in your pain, as you sit with that, finding your breath. So really being able
Mm.
to breathe into and expand where you feel contracted, where you feel restricted, where you feel severed, and just slowly, 1% at a time, allowing the breath to be that opening or that expansion within you.
Mm.
And the other component of this is not allowing yourself to shift into the narrative of, I need to get rid of the pain.
Mm.
It's changing the mindset and opening up an avenue for, what if I embraced this pain and I loved it so wholly? What if I loved this discomfort in the moment? Can I allow there to be a sliver of compassion And then the more we, of course, practice this compassion and practice this allowance and this acknowledgement, the pain becomes less and less because we're allowing it to take up space and we're giving it recognition. And so it's a process that we commit to that is over time. It's not an
Mhm.
instantaneous fix. It's not a, here's your red pill or your blue pill, which one are you going to take? It's this coming into this slow caregiving, this nurturing, right? Again and again, cycle after cycle, and then equipping yourself with womb care routines throughout the entirety of the cycle, not just ignoring the womb until she has pain, until she's in her bleed phase, then caretaking. It's all of the things that you do for the 28 days beforehand and during the cycle that support that relationship, and that it's a co-creative build.
Yeah. Tell us more about these routines that we can have. I already did a podcast on the four phases
Mm,
of the cycle and
yeah.
practices that you can have in your business or in your life according to each
Mm-hmm.
cycle. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a great add to that episode, I guess, to add
Yeah.
a routine. Like what could you do for your womb with each phase of the
Mm-hmm.
cycle?
So our phases, I mean, our womb and our bleed are individual, like a fingerprint, right? They're so specific to us. And so just coming into the awareness of your bleed is where I would invite the invitation to start, right? Whether you actually have completed your bleed or not, whether you are on hormonal birth control, which prevents the bleed, coming into um, the awareness of when the bleed starts, or pairing yourself with a moon phase, whether you're
Mm,
menopausal or if you've removed the organ itself, you can come into a moon phase. And we hold ourselves in the deep state of like awareness. This is the time for meditation. This is the time where you prioritize 3 to 5 days of doing nothing. This is where you
mm.
send everyone out of the house, you take yourself and you stay somewhere, and you just really nourish yourself. This is, deep, slow movements. This is moving into how can I breathe with what is my current state? How can I breathe into the state that I am right now? Really allowing the blood to come back to the earth. You can capture your blood or you can have your free bleeds. And so one ritual would be to allow yourself to bleed freely, to allow yourself to just
Mm.
sit on a beautiful towel and just let it go through your breath. You can be journaling, you can just be holding your womb space and communing with yourself. Like, I see
I've been
you.
wanting to do that. I think it's a very wild exercise because, I mean, wild, it's not that wild. It's just going back to our wild nature.
Yeah.
But, we are so used to not even seeing it. You just put, a cup or a Tampax and then you just throw it away.
Mm,
No, it's something is happening. Just look at what the beauty, because it's beautiful when you think about it.
beautiful.
It's sacred.
So beautiful. And it's stem cells. So our womb blood can grow any cell, any organ, any tissue in the body. It's really, really powerful medicine. And it's said that when women will heal the earth, and when women are giving their blood back to the earth, that is the only blood that's not spilt in violence. It's regenerative
Mm.
blood, it's restorative blood, it's life-giving blood, right? So if we can come into a ritual of just using our senses here. So maybe it is free bleeding for you, or maybe it is like looking at your blood on your hand, or perhaps engaging the scent, right? Coming back into reclaiming the shame, right? Owning that, hey, this is life giving and I have nothing to fear about my blood. We've been conditioned through
Yeah.
patriarchy to reject this beautiful life giving blood or think it's disgusting. And so the ritual could be owning it and just examining and exploring and getting curious about how that feels in my body, to look at the blood, to touch it, to taste it, to smell it, to bring it into my awareness. And then as you complete your bleed, we move into that springtime, or that follicular phase. So we're starting to rebuild the tissues. And this is a beautiful opportunity for you to do a yoni steam, the ritual to
Mm.
bring more circulation. So a letting down of any old blood that wasn't able to quite release. This is an invitation for you to review all of the intense emotions that arrived during the bleed. any insights that came forward. The springtime phase or post bleed phase is the opportunity for you to implement sort of like an action plan for the next cycle. And you want to also be mindful of building up the blood. You want to build up the iron. You want to infuse your tissues with bone broths and with rooted vegetables, and just really focus on building up all that you're going to release in the next cycle. And then you hit your ovulation, your summertime, right? This is the chance for you to be in orgasm and in ecstatic dance. And you want to move the pelvis. You want to stir her up. You want to allow yourself to be in a space of expression. So this is a great time to have socializations, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is a ritual of expression. So however that looks for you. And then as you descend back down into the fall phase, you're just moving into what emotions are still under the current, because they're all going to come up again, right? And we're like, oh, hey, here's like that rage, all right, and it's coming up again, and what is it telling me? And so being curious and inviting in a receptivity instead of a rejection is a
Mm-hmm.
big ritual, just allowing the emotions to come to the surface for investigation, and then being conscious on what you're choosing to release through your bleed, what you're choosing
The
to,
next cycle.
yeah, and what you're choosing to let go of.
Mm. Beautiful. So we bleed freely, we do yoni steam, we move
Mhm.
into expression, and we connect with our emotions.
Yeah.
Nice. And so you work particularly with women entrepreneurs, and you really help them through womb work and the beautiful work that you do to hold space for themselves, hold space for others, and really to birth their business from their wombs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I actually created through the decade of work that I've been doing with women. I've created this methodology, and I call it the foundation method. And so basically what it is it's this co-creative relationship, piecing your divinity, really piecing that divinity, anchoring it with your womb space and in conjunction to Mother Earth. So it's sort of like this three-piece co-creative journey that is what I guide women through in all of the work that I do. And so it's this reciprocal weaving together of the connection with Mama Earth and the connection with your womb space, your own creative nature, and then your own divinity. And so in business, what that brings forth is your ability to meet yourself at a certain level of your consciousness, of your awareness,
Mhm.
of your own development and your own journey. And the women that I work with have done a lot of work. They're very, skilled at their own personal excavations and awarenesses, and yet they find that they hit sort of this plateau, if you will. They hit this plateau and they're like, okay, I'm here, and this narrative is still here, and this energy is still here, and I can't seem to shift or move past and derive a deeper understanding of why this is a repetitive pattern.
Mhm.
Whether that's in their business, it's very symbolic of what's happening inside and what's happening in the creative process of the business.
Yeah.
And so we come together, and I create these containers to go deeper beyond and beneath all that seems to be shifted or blocked for the beautiful women in their business. And there we can excavate, there we can come into and bring to light what might be occurring. And so when this happens, it's a beautiful shamanic journey, right? When this happens, there's that level of death, there's the level of a new identity forming simultaneously being birthed forward. And so with that, you have a greater awareness, and you can reach a deeper depth in your own being. Now you've descended down into the womb space. There's been another layer of that spiral healing journey that's
Yeah.
come forward to be alchemized, right? Your womb is just this gorgeous alchemical process, this cauldron. And then when you're able to integrate and alchemize, you can see things from a new perspective. There's more space, there's more pleasure, there's more freedom. And then you can hold your students, your clients at a greater depth, because you're able to meet yourself
Of
at a
course.
greater depth. And so it's this, yeah, co-creative process that's happening.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's this beautiful song from Fia. Do you know Fia?
I don't.
She's a Scandinavian. I think she's from Norway or Finland. Finland, I think.
Mm,
And there's a beautiful song where she says, I can only meet you at the level of depth that I have with myself,
mhm.
which is so true. And sometimes, that can be a challenge because we want deeper relationship with others that maybe haven't experienced that, or the opposite. Sometimes we're not always ready to go as deep as the person that's in front of us. And
Yeah.
that's definitely important in our professional relationships to be able to meet each other where we're at. And so, how would you help a woman entrepreneur that, she's having to make choices in her business and she's not sure which one is the best choice?
Mm,
Our womb is a well of wisdom. How
mhm,
do you help these women connect with their womb to find their answers?
Yeah, beautiful question. So it's really coming into the dance between, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, or if you want to think about the masculine being the mountains and the earth and this just structure, and then the feminine being the ocean or the waves.
Mm,
So it like hits up against the shore, but she's protected and safe to be in her expansive nature, and the mountains are just steady and holding her, holding the ground. So when we come into business and we're looking at decisions, business has a masculine framework, right? It has this structure, and how we choose to approach the structure becomes our feminine creation. It becomes that watery, fluid, yes, I need to make a mailing list. And so there's masculine structures and actions towards that. And how the feminine comes in is our creative content in terms of our words and our expression and so on and so forth. So when we come into decision making, really coming from a place of what, for the lack of a better word, masculine structures have I set myself up for? Because the womb requires the safety to descend. And so we
mm,
have an inner masculine, right? We have that inner guide, that guardian, that protector. And we need to fortify our relationship with that, so that there is the sense of safety, of held safety, to descend down, down, down into these really deep, vulnerable, watery components of ourselves. So the
mm.
invitation for decision making would be first connecting with the strength and your personal trust in that structure of
That's a big
masculine.
one.
Yeah,
Personal
that
trust.
protector, that personal trust of like, how well are you holding the container for yourself, so that you can descend down to gain the wisdom of the womb. And I do see this a lot, where there's the skipping of that, where we're just like, I want to go into the womb space, and then we meet this chaos, and we meet this like deep, wild, dark void of nothingness. And it can be very scary because
Yeah.
some other pillars aren't in place yet to hold the container of that deep vulnerability.
Yeah, the masculine is necessary. He anchors the deep feminine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the structure that's needed.
Yeah.
And I feel that for a lot of women, even if we do a lot of work on ourselves and we show up in our business with confidence, sometimes there is still a small part of us that is not fully confident or fully trusting herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important. How do you help your clients to really move into that deep anchored self trust?
Yeah. Well, again, recognition, right? Naming it to tame it. That's coming into, hey, this is my acknowledgement. This is where I'm at. This is what's current for me. And then from that space, we create a strong container to hold it. So this is fortifying through visualizations, fortifying through moving and journeying to meet some of your guides, some of
Mhm.
your whether you want to call them power animals, or whether you want to, however you
Ancestors.
want to, yeah, however you want to label it. We journey so that you can actually meet and claim that visualization or that knowingness of your guide. And then we start to fortify that from inside. We start to fortify your own knowing, anchoring into the body. The body is our earth-based temple, right? Really coming into understanding and communing in the physical form, first and foremost, through embodiment movements, through Kundalini movements, through breath work, through deep grounding exercises. You can well, bury your feet in the earth. You can sit down in the ground and like bury your body and just really remember what it feels like to be anchored.
Mhm.
And then from that space, we journey. And I work a lot with, the archetypal goddesses, in particular, Mama Isis, and, that
My
beautiful,
favorite.
that beautiful goddess of resurrection, right? And so as we, journey down into your womb space, I call upon Mama Isis to help bring soul fragments back. And so we do soul
Mm.
retrieval, and we fortify before we can really come into a deep space of trust. Like, there's a relationship that needs to be built and fortified. And then we can stream forward from answers. And then we can stream forward into expansion. And so I think one of the biggest things is remembering that this this work is devotion, right? It's a
Mhm.
devotional practice. It's a devotional container. It's not just a one and done and we're all good to go. I don't think that anyone on our energetic spiritual healing path has ever found that one and done. And I'm not sure how integral that would be either.
Unless you're an ascended master, and you're like Jesus.
Totally. Yeah.
I love that you share that because I know this is deeply resonating with my audience because I talk a lot about the witch wound and the bitch boon and how we've been told for so long that we are too much, too noisy, too weird, too loud. It still happens to me a lot that when I speak my truth, every single time someone is there to tell me, you're too much, you're making things up, this is not true, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been forever, I feel like women's voices have been pushed down. And so as a result of it, sometimes we second guess ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
then we stop trusting ourselves. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that it is so healing for so many women what you're doing. So thank you for them
Mm-hmm.
because
Thank
it's so
you.
important. Do you see also, I mean, I'm sure you do. So my question, I guess, would be, how do you help women that have, financial blocks? Do you really
Mm.
see a link between the abundance that they are experiencing and their relationship with their womb? And how do you help them with that?
Mm. Thank you. That was so beautiful because I literally just had this conversation with one of my students yesterday.
Awesome.
Yeah, so resonance. So we talk a lot about, or in the work that I do, it is weaving the psychology into the body knowing, right, and into the womb coding. And so we come into our core beliefs,
Yeah.
right? And so because we know that we've been imprinted in up until 7 years of age, from conception till seven, we've been imprinted with the narrative of our parents and society, and we kind of function on this automatic plane until we choose differently, until we choose to come into awareness. We have these core programmings around finances, and so what happens, as you well know, is that if our internal environment is different than our external environment, the internal environment will do everything in its power to make the external ring true to what the internal is feeling, aka self-sabotage. If we have money blocks, if we have these limiting beliefs, doesn't matter how much in the conscious realm we try to
Make things happen.
override and make things happen, and really get stuck on manifestations. If our internal narrative, if that deep core belief is that money isn't safe, or money doesn't grow on trees, or we have a deep core rooting, which a lot of us do, in scarcity, like there's not enough, there's never enough. It
Yeah.
shows up not only in that narrative, but like, I'm not enough, I'm not
Mhm.
lovable, right? The whole not enoughness. And so it coming into being able to identify what these deep core beliefs are, and then reprogramming the mind around it. So it is mindset work. And from our womb spaces, we can really root down, once we have this deep connection, once we've established this deeper trust of like, what is actually true? And how can I use my cycle to release these old narratives that the mind is really chewing with? Right. So it becomes obviously a whole body approach.
Yeah.
It's not segregation in any way, but really identifying these mind patterns and the emotional connection that's associated with that.
Hmm.
And so, in the work that I do, I bring my clients into a state where we really fully acknowledge the depth of the scarcity. We fully acknowledge, like, maybe in your childhood, this is what was occurring for you. You really didn't have any food, or you had exactly what you needed, and the narrative still exists. So, from that place, when we can hone in on one of those earlier childhood memories, we can then reprogram it and start to implement a new narrative from that deep mind place, the psyche place. And I think this is where you would call it like quantum healing. This is where we do the
Yeah.
quantum leaps, is then associating your womb space with what it would feel like, right? Coming back into the feeling, really envisioning, having clear visions of like, hey, what would it feel like to feel safe, to feel financially safe, right? What would it feel like to know that I'm successful, to know that the endeavors that I put forward are enough. They are perfectly imperfect, right? And through that reprogramming, then the energy that you bring forward is now more in alignment with your internal mindset. And there's not like this tug of war or pulling.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely. I think it's so important because so many of us feel, whether you grew up with money or without it, so many people still stay in scarcity mindset. I grew up with,
Women.
yeah, women,
Mm-hmm.
especially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I grew up with a lot of privileges as a kid, and then my dad had a bankruptcy later on when I was 10. But still, the three of us, we have a huge scarcity mindset, even though we were really safe and we still had our house and we had more than enough food on the table and holidays, every summer and every winter. So um, I feel like it's also transgenerational. Sometimes the
Mm-hmm.
scarcity mindset doesn't even belong to us.
Yep.
I think of my grandfather that was telling my mother, oh, you kids, you cost me money, everything is expensive. But poor him, he received that from his mother because
Mm-hmm.
father died and she had to take care of five kids on her own, and
Yeah.
he was young, and then who knows, it goes probably even further. So I'm already conscious of like four generations, so what about
Mm-hmm.
further than that?
Yeah.
So it's such deep work. And why do you think that women especially are touched by that scarcity mindset rather than men?
Well, if we look back to the very root of patriarchy, it basically put a hierarchy on women and men. And the men were they received the dowries, they received the land, they received all of the financial gain way thousands of years back. And so we're literally dealing with thousands of years of oppression of our
Yeah,
financial freedom,
yeah, it's
right?
true.
So I full heartedly and full wombly agree with that being the root cause of most of our mindsets, right? And there is this fierce upbringing and uprising of like claiming the sovereignty, like I want to be my own sovereign woman, in charge of my finances, in charge of my mindset, in charge of all parts of me and my womb and my bleed and how I express myself and my sensuality and my sexuality. And so all of it is coming up based off of the deep seated, rooted ancestral conditionings that we have had to accept over the years for fear of death or for fear of ostracization or removal from the community. Because at those times, if we didn't have community, we didn't necessarily sustain life. So there's a lot to unpack
Yeah,
in
yeah.
layers, obviously, as you know. But in my in my research and in my knowingness, I do believe it really does stem from those earlier days. And
Oh
we're
yeah,
just
for
perpetuating pieces of it. And now it's like, let's reclaim that. Let's be able to lay that to rest and come forward. And we're, the whole world's in a brand new movement. We're just
mm.
really putting all of this energy forward to this new life. And it's really, really friggin' important to like connect
Definitely.
to our wombs, freedom from these ancestral wombs, creating freedom, liberation, right? No
And I
longer being
feel like,
tied.
every time a woman is healing herself, reconnecting with her womb, letting go of that scarcity mindset, we are healing the collective a bit more, and we're healing each other, and we're showing
Mhm.
to others what's possible. And that's why I'm showing up much more now, talking about the kinds of money that I make, and to show others what's possible really when they step into reconnecting with their womb, their power, their wisdom, their soul, and really
Mhm.
reclaiming who they are.
Yeah. Yes,
So important.
100%.
Yeah.
Reclaiming the birth, right? Reclaiming the stories and
Yeah.
making new ones, creating these new narratives, right? They will become the familiar, they will become normalized. We're just unnormalizing the past.
Yeah. For now. And then yeah, I wanted to say something and I forgot now, but I guess it wasn't that important. You also wanted to help us drop into our womb and
Mm.
reconnect with her.
Yeah, I wanted to offer just a little tangible guidance around presencing. So coming back
Mm.
into embodiment, right? Moving into capturing the senses and descending down into the womb space. And so just, yeah, allowing wherever you are at in your journey to descend to where is available without pushing or forcing or creating internalized pressure on yourself.
Let's dive in.
Mm. All right, closing your eyes, rubbing your hands together in front of your heart, just creating some heat. Finding your breath as you rub your hands. And then bringing the warmth of your palms down over your womb space in a downward triangle, thumbs connecting, index fingers pointing down, and just resting your hands here. Starting to close the eyes or lower the gaze. Find the pace and the rhythm of your breath. And with every inhale, start to call back all of your energy, your soul, your spirit, your light from all directions. Infuse yourself right here, right now, with your light on each inhale. Calling back your light from the earth, from other people, from the sky, from the four directions, and seeing it return down, down, down into your womb space from 360 degrees. And with each exhale, releasing all that is ready to be released in this moment.
Mm.
And as you continue to breathe and drop your awareness into the very lowest places of you, you may wish to rub the womb. You may wish to cup your sacred vulva, your sacred yoni. Cupping the hands really helps to presence ourselves, touch, whatever feels available and organic for you in this moment. And as you follow the breath on the inhale, follow it all the way down as deep as you can, and allow yourself to land in your womb. And as you land in your womb space, I invite you to notice the landscape here. Just send your energetic feelers out for what you can retrieve through your senses in your womb. Noticing any textures, any smells, any visuals or colors. Noticing any sensations and emotions that may occur. Remembering that all is worthy and all is welcome. And just imagining for a moment that you could provide a source of light. Maybe it's through a fire, through a flashlight or a torch. And just starting to illuminate and scan the walls of your womb, noticing what the texture is, what maybe the material is. Is it marble or stone? Is it a lush garden? Is it wood? Are there areas that are dark, forgotten about? Are there areas that are bright? And so, this presencing is an opportunity for you to observe and just be in witness without needing to shift or change or make different. Taking a moment to look to the ground, to the sky or the above, in all directions. And if it feels available to you, you can introduce yourself to your womb as if you would introduce yourself to a beautiful new friend. And you can ask, perhaps, for a reply if the womb would like to share their name with you, remembering that this is a very primal and wild organ. You may notice that there is a change in energy, a sensing. And for some of us, we may wish to explore, and maybe it's available for you to take one step in any direction. And for some of us, this may be where our journey ends. And the invitation is to return here as often as possible, engaging all of your senses, engaging every piece of you as you land in your womb, to explore, to really know the landscape, to get curious about the textures, the spaces that feel closed off, spaces that don't feel illuminated, or the spaces that are very, very dark. Can we sit and stand in those spaces? When you're ready, giving gratitude and starting to use your breath to bring your awareness up from your womb and into your heart space, and drawing all of your awareness back to this moment in space and time.
Mm.
And then opening your eyes when you feel ready.
Thank you, Shae. That was beautiful. I always feel so much safety every time I connect with my womb. It reminds me that, everything's fine. The mind is just making things complicated, and we just make things harder for ourselves than they should be. So thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
For everyone that has loved listening to you and your beautiful, soothing voice, where can they find you and connect with you and work with you?
Amazing. Yeah. Instagram is a big hub, social media. So it's just my name at Shae_Savage_ or ShaeSavage.com. I have a beautiful Awaken to Your Expansion program where we go deep into our womb sovereignty and exploration happening March 14th. So that is a beautiful invitation for anyone that wants to go deeper on this journey. You can find out all that information on my website. And that's where I'm at.
Awesome. You're going to send me all these links and we're going to put them in the show notes of the episodes. So,
Yeah.
ladies, go and follow Shae and her beautiful work and connect with your womb because there's a lot of magic and wisdom in there waiting for you. Thank you so much, Shae.
Thank you so much, my love.